Well, this is where it all starts. This is the production of wind for the organ, and there are two electric blowers here. There's this big one, and then there's a second subsidiary smaller blower in that box on the top. And for the first 10 years of the organ's life, it was hand blown using a large wooden bellows over here that fitted in there. And it wasn't until 1921 that an electric blower was first installed in this position. These are replacement blowers because the original blowers developed a fault a few years ago, and we had to remove the blower and its case, which was full of asbestos. So having produced air in these electric blowers, the air passes through to very large reservoirs. So the small blower up on the top there feeds through a channel into this rather large reservoir here, and then this particular blower, the wind goes that way and into, this is a second reservoir there, which actually feeds all the pipes, the wind of the organ. And in a minute we'll switch the organ on and we'll see the reservoirs rise as the wind passes through from the two blowers. And on top of the reservoirs are some very large pieces of metal which basically produce the wind pressure that is needed to drive the organ. Well, here we have the Hill console for the organ. It's a typical 1911, early 1900s console by William Hill, made of very fine walnut and in really a superb condition, relative really for the age of the organ. And you can see here that there are three keyboards, 1, 2, 3. The keyboards are called manuals. And if you look closely, like here, the middle of each keyboard, which is where presumably most people have played over the years, the middle is increasingly worn compared with the outer notes of the keyboards. The top keyboard, the top manual, is called the swell organ. The middle is the grate, and the bottom manual is the choir. And then down there we have pedals, which are pretty well the same as the keys on the manuals, but obviously slightly larger because that's where the feet have to go. Now, to make any sound come out of the keyboards, we have to pull a stop out. So here we have the swell stops, and if I just pull one stop out and play a note, it will show that basically that stop is working the top manual. And over here we have the stops for the middle manual, the grate manual. So again, if I just pull one stop out, there we are. And the bottom manual, the stops are here, the choir organ, and then there are stops over here for the pedal organ. A couple of things to note here. First is, this is unusual insofar as the missing stops. The organ has a lot of important missing stops, but they are stubs. They are, the position of them is clearly here because the stubs are there to indicate where the missing stops should go. Second thing is that over the years there have been quite a few blemishes on the condition of the console. The first is this rather ancient driving mirror. I don't know if it's 1911. It's certainly most inappropriate for the organ and so needs to be replaced. Over here is the electric switch for the blower, and that again is entirely inappropriate, but that was installed a few years ago just to give a degree of security in terms of the actual organ. and then much more difficult to spot. But as stops have been added over the years, the lettering on the stop heads is entirely inconsistent. So these are original hill stops here, but the lettering down there of a later stop head is different. And over here, fine detail, these ones are original hill stop heads. That one isn't, and the T of the two is a different shape to the T of the two over here and here. And also the rings on the stop heads, these are original hill rings. These two are 1958 Hill, Norman and Beard stop rings, and they're entirely different. So the plan basically is not only to complete the organ in due course, but also to restore the console to how it should look or did actually look in 1911. One other feature which is unusual is that these two pedals down here, which operate when we go upstairs in the organ, we'll see that the top manual stop pipes and the bottom manual pipes are in boxes with shutters that are on the front, which open and shut according to the position of these pedals, and it makes the sound go either louder or softer depending on which way the shutters are going. Normally on an organ with pedals like these, the swell pedals, they are in the middle. But in 1958, when the original latch lever, which would have been down here, all the older organs used to have just a lever that went up and down and was kicked with a foot. That was replaced in 1958 with these two pedals. But normally the pedals would be in the middle. And it's just that obviously Hill, Norman Beard, for whatever reason in 1958, did not want to tinker with a mechanism that links the pedals with the shutters upstairs on the two boxes. So here we are, up in the organ itself, and in terms of orientation, we're looking up at the roof of the chancel, and right in front of us here are the casework organ pipes, and you can just about see through some of the pipes down to the choir stalls below. So that's where we are, high up above the choir stalls. And the pipes around us are those for the middle manual, the great manual. And if we now just look down, we can see what is called the soundboard, which is the main chorus of great pipes, the different ranks, and the way that it works is that the smaller pipes obviously are higher pitched than the larger ones, and so each of the stop ranks goes down to the middle and then up the other side, and that's all as an aid to tuning, so that basically the movement from one pipe to the next is about a tone. There's a mixture of wooden pipes and metal pipes, and on some of the wooden pipes you can see the lettering of the actual note itself. So I'm looking at one that says B, and I'm looking at another one that says G, and they're all shapes and sizes. But it can also be seen, the condition of the pipes is pretty variable, and on top of the wooden pipes there are layers of dust, and on top of the top end of the metal pipes, the top ring on many of the pipes is rusty. And here nearest where I'm standing, there's a rank of pipes that go slightly around the corner, and they are differently constructed. So whereas most of the pipes are just like whistles, these ones are called reeds, and this is the great sound stop, and basically it has a vibrating mechanism at the foot rather than an opening halfway along. Now we're now going to just turn around, and up above where I'm standing are two boxes. The very top one is the swell box with shutters, and that's one of the two pedals that we were looking at on the console. And then immediately below that, right behind where we're standing, are the shutters of the choir box, which I'm now just opening to show the effect of opening and closing shutters. That's open and that's shut. So when you open the shutters on the pedal downstairs, basically the sound gets out more easily. Well, now these are the largest pipes on the organ, and they face down the north aisle, and these are great big wooden boxes, and essentially it's a stop called the open wood on the pedals. And the largest one, which is right in the middle here, which is bottom C, is 16 foot top to bottom, and down below we have some of the smaller ones, which are part of the same rank, and it's easy to see here. The labelling here is pedal flute, and here we have more of these large wooden pipes. And then immediately behind where I'm standing at the moment are the two boxes, the choir box immediately here and the swell box upstairs. And in a minute or two we're going to try and take a picture of the upper box inside, but to get there we have to shin up a ladder basically in this space, which is not very great. So in a minute or two we're going to go up and just have a look inside that box. Also, just to see here, there are some of the many lead tubes on the organ. Right here, all these tubes are basically the passage of wind through to the pipes from the keyboard, and they will all in due course be replaced by electric switches. Right, now we're going to go upstairs now. Well, here we are, having a look inside the swell box, and I've shinned up a ladder to get to this upper level. There's only room for one person, so I'm going to now get the camera, and here we have the pipes of the swell organ inside the box, basically all at the back of the box, and the other thing you see here is a considerable empty space, which is where the missing pipes should actually be, but they're not here and need to be installed. And these are some of the most important ranks of the swell organ, because they will have the punch and the power for the building as a whole. And at the front there we have the shutters, which are at the moment they're open, and when they're closed, and this door is closed actually, then obviously the sound is contained within the box, and as the shutters open the sound increases externally. Well, now what we're looking at here are essentially the control mechanisms for the stops in the swell box, and each of these white flaps is basically a motor, which is either open or shut, and at the moment all the motors are actually open, and you can see here the tubes, which are basically lead, and so when a stop is pulled on the organ, basically the flaps will inflate and the stop will be engaged. And then coming down slightly, these are the actions that govern the very top notes on the swell, and I only know that because we were trying to get one of these little tiny motors, which is here. These are little tiny motors which govern whether the note, it basically governs the air going through to the pipe for the particular note. And one of these was sticking the other day, and what we were trying to do was to get it to unstick. And very top notes, we actually didn't manage to do it. And the last thing just to see here is this is the main wind pipe from the reservoir, up to the swell organ, and the point about this is to see the perishing that has taken place on this windpipe, which has obviously been sort of patched up with a bit of leather gaff tape, but I mean still is in pretty poor condition. And it was around this area somewhere a few years ago that we actually found one of these pipe gaps that had been stuffed full of I think it was a green tea towel or something similar, just to make sure that the wind was passing through. And I don't know whether we can just see down there, these are pedal stops. The top of the stops has got a little stopper in, and basically by having a stopper in, it doubles the length of the pipe in terms of the way that the sound goes into the pipe and up, and so produces a note that is lower than would otherwise be the case. And the other thing just to see is that wooden beam there is actually the wind channel going up. So here we are, we're just peering in the back of the choir organ box, and we can see all the pipes displayed again, descending to the middle and then going up again on the right hand side. At the front here where we're looking are the shutters that at the moment are closed, but basically those are the opening shutters. Now, two things particularly to note here. First again is the dusty conditions and the state of the pipes themselves, which is obviously not of the best. And also here, some of these pipes were actually too big to go in full length, and so they've been bent over in order to fit in the box. But here there's a gap, and the gap here between the pipes nearest where I'm speaking, and then the majority of the pipes just further away, that is where originally in Hill's organ the shutters went, because originally this box was much smaller, and those shutters would have been where that gap is, and the effect would have been that the pipes in front of the shutters, in other words those ones, would have sounded much more clearly than they do now. And his design was only to have these stops here inside the choir box and not those. So one of the ideas that we have in terms of the scheme of restoration is actually to return the shutters to their correct position. So here we are looking again at the actions that sit underneath the swell pipes, with the lead tubes here passing the air up through this wooden channel that we just looked at from the side, and again you can see here that the motors, the individual motors, which open and shut according to whether a note is being pressed, and again the leathers are clearly worn. I'm just looking at this one here, which is obviously in a very bad state, and I don't know whether it's one that's already perished or going to perish. The newer white is clearly different to the older white in terms of the leather. And just looking up there, we see Mr. Hill wrote swell, meaning the swell actions, and he's got stamped on that piece of wood the job number of this organ, which is 2412. I think it's rather nice that you could actually find 2412 stamped all the way up here inside the organ.